Unit 9. Gateway. Dick Enberg was one of America's most beloved sports broadcasters. He was born in Michigan in 1935. In the early 1960s, he became an assistant professor at San Fernando Valley State College, where he also served as a coach of its baseball team. Afterwards, he began a full-time sportscasting career in Los Angeles. In 1973, he became the first U.S. sportscaster ever to visit China. He joined NBC Sports in 1975 and remained with the network for about 25 years, covering such big events as the Olympics. He later worked for other major sports broadcasting stations. He made his last live broadcast in 2016 and died the following year at the age of 82. He served as chairman of the American Sportscaster Association for more than 3 decades. Enberg was also a best-selling writer and won Emmy Awards as a sportscaster, a writer, and a producer. Exercises. Number 1. Lucian of Samosata was born in 125 CE, near the Euphrates River at the far eastern edge of the Roman Empire. He became an assistant to his uncle, who owned a statue-making shop. Lucian proved to have little talent as a sculptor, but was a gifted writer and speaker, so he became a traveling lecturer. He lived in Athens for a decade and later in his life gained wealth as a government official in Egypt. Due to his satirical and ironic style and desire to be entertaining, it is difficult to know how seriously to take his statements. He frequently ridiculed religious practices, superstition, and belief in the paranormal. Lucian had an enormous impact on Western literature. His ideas influenced the work of William Shakespeare, Jonathan Swift, Voltaire, Johann Wolfgang Goethe, and many others reaching into the modern era. Number 2. The ancient Gauls were a Celtic people who spoke forms of the Celtic language. They occupied the ancient country of Gaul, a region west of the Rhine River and north of the Pyrenees Mountains. The Gauls were led by priests, who were called Druids. By 390 BC, the Gauls had moved southward, across the Alps and into Italy. In the 3rd century BC, they battled the powerful Romans and were briefly successful. Ultimately, however, they were defeated, becoming subjects of Rome. Later, under Julius Caesar, the Romans occupied all of Gaul, so that by 50 BC, the region became part of the Roman Empire. 5 centuries later, Gaul was overrun by the Franks, for whom the region was named. Thus, it can be said that French people today are descendants of the Gauls. Number 3. Born in 1832 in Cheshire, England, Charles Lutwidge Dodgson was best known later by his pen name, Lewis Carroll. He was the eldest son and 3rd child in a family of 7 girls and 4 boys. Dodgson received a scholarship to study at Christ Church, Oxford, where he was later appointed as a mathematics lecturer. Apart from serving as a lecturer, he was an enthusiastic photographer and wrote essays, political pamphlets, and poetry. In 1856, a poem called Solitude was published under the pen name Lewis Carroll. Dodgson arrived at this pen name by taking his own names Charles Lutwidge, translating them into Latin as Carolus Ludovicus, and then reversing and retranslating them into English. He used the name afterward for all his non-academic works. His most famous books include Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. Number 4. Willard Van Orman Quine was an American logician and philosopher. Born in 1908 in Ohio, he was the youngest son of the family. His father was Cloyd Robert Quine, an engineer who founded the Akron Equipment Company. His mother, Harriet Van Orman, was a teacher. After studying mathematics and logic at Oberlin College, Quine won a scholarship to Harvard University, where he completed his Ph.D. in 1932. He traveled throughout Europe, meeting some of the leading philosophers and logicians of the day, including Rudolf Carnap and Alfred Tarski. Returning to teach at Harvard, Quine's philosophical career was briefly interrupted during World War II, when he spent 4 years decoding messages for the U.S. Navy intelligence. A great traveler, he was said to be prouder of the fact that he had visited 118 countries than of his many awards and fellowships. Quine became professor of philosophy at Harvard in 1956 and taught there until his death in 2000, aged 92.